So it is a ghost town.
For me,
Concerning. Canadian tourism is down about.
This is now Miami low season. We expect low season, but it's extremely low season. So a lot of people losing jobs.
20%. Canada's our number one visitor market, so it's.
The shocking downfall of Florida's tourism economy crumbled due to its own politicians' decision to alienate Canadian snowbirds, losing a $6.6 billion cash cow. Instead of welcoming them, they pushed them away with reckless rhetoric. Who knew that such a short-sighted move could unravel a thriving economy so quickly?
Birds are flying north. According to a South Florida real estate agent, Canadians are flocking out of.
Let's break down why Florida's tourism economy has taken such a nosedive. The most shocking part of this decline? The mass exodus of Canadian snowbirds, Florida's most loyal visitors for years. Political hostility, rising living costs, and a weakening Canadian dollar have pushed these snowbirds to reconsider their annual winter escape. What was once a vibrant migration of snowbirds is now a silent departure. Property sales are up, rental agreements are getting cut short, and bookings are falling off the cliff. Canadians, once the backbone of Florida's winter economy, are packing up and leaving. And it's not just a few, it's an avalanche.
Florida's economy is driven largely by tourism, and this year the state is on pace to set a new record for a number of visitors that come here. But things have slowed down quite a bit, actually. Now, the reason why? Well, the answer to that varies depending on who you ask.
The real kicker: Florida's politicians. Instead of welcoming these snowbirds with open arms, they chose to alienate them with divisive rhetoric. The message was clear. Florida no longer wanted Canadian dollars, and the snowbirds heard it loud and clear. What started as small signs of discontent turned into a full-blown exodus as Canadians fled in record numbers. And let's be clear, this wasn't just a few disgruntled travelers. This was a $6.6 billion hit to Florida's economy, gone in the blink of an eye. The ripple effect was felt across industries that were heavily reliant on Canadian snowbirds. Restaurants, retail stores, and entertainment venues, businesses that thrived off the seasonal influx of snowbirds, were suddenly left with empty chairs and empty wallets. Staff layoffs became a painful reality, and entire communities saw their service industries crumble. Florida's real estate market took a severe blow, too. With Canadian snowbirds leaving in droves, property values dropped dramatically, up to 30% in some areas. What was once prime real estate became a liability, with empty properties flooding the market. The only thing vacant in Florida was the homes that once housed the snowbirds. Even Florida's medical sector wasn't spared. Many Canadian snowbirds planned their medical procedures around their stays in Florida. Dentistry, specialist treatments, you name it. These clinics, outpatient centers, and dental practices saw their patient volumes plummet, with some losing up to 60% of their revenue. Without their most reliable clientele, these businesses were left scrambling to stay afloat. The $6.6 billion loss was only the beginning. Florida's economy, built on the backs of its northern neighbors, suddenly faced a crisis of its own making. Politicians' refusal to read the room and their stubbornness to course-correct led to a full-blown economic disaster that's shaking Florida to its core. The state has learned a harsh lesson. You can't afford to bite the hand that feeds you, especially when that hand is holding billions of dollars. But let's talk about Florida's political blunder, the root cause of this downfall. Instead of noticing the early signs of an economic collapse, Florida's leaders doubled down on anti-Canadian rhetoric. As Canadians canceled bookings, sold their properties, and pulled out of the rental market, Florida's politicians just kept pushing forward with their divisive narrative. They thought they could weather the storm. What they didn't realize was that they were the storm. The assumption that Canadians couldn't live without Florida's sunshine was not only naive but catastrophic. They completely underestimated the situation, and in doing so, they wiped out a vital revenue stream. Rather than adjusting their policies, Florida's leaders celebrated their stance, convinced they were winning political points. But by doing so, they deepened the crisis. The snowbirds weren't just taking a short break from Florida, they were divorcing the state completely, and Florida's leadership was too blinded by pride to see it coming. As the Canadian exodus continued, Florida's local businesses started to crumble. Restaurants, retail, and entertainment venues that had once flourished during the winter months suddenly found themselves fighting to survive. For many, bankruptcy was inevitable. The real estate market also took a serious hit, with property values in seasonal areas plummeting by a staggering 30%. Canadian owners, once loyal to Florida, flooded the market with properties they no longer needed, and the demand just vanished. Airlines weren't spared either. With fewer Canadians booking flights, airlines slashed routes by 40%, leaving planes empty and airports underutilized. Car rental agencies, which had been fully booked during peak season, found themselves with excess inventory. Cars that were once in high demand were now sitting idle, with no customers to rent them. The entire logistics network supporting seasonal tourism came crashing down. Even contractors who specialized in snowbird property maintenance felt the pinch. These businesses, which thrived on long-term maintenance contracts, saw their revenue drop by 70%. With snowbirds no longer coming to Florida, contractors had no work. The industry went into survival mode, and many faced closure as well. Florida's political blunder didn't just hurt its own economy, it opened the door for global competitors to swoop in and take advantage. Mediterranean cities, with their warm climates and rich cultural offerings, wasted no time capitalizing on Florida's failure. They offered the same sunshine, but with far less political baggage. Europeans quickly pointed out that they could provide the warmth without the drama, and the allure of charming coastal cities became irresistible. Meanwhile, Mexico and the Caribbean weren't sitting idly by. Mexico streamlined its visa process, making it easier than ever for snowbirds to migrate south. The Caribbean focused on its political stability and warm welcome for Canadian travelers. As Florida's reputation as a reliable winter haven crumbled, these alternative destinations rose to the occasion, offering the same sunshine but without the political headaches. In the wake of Florida's miscalculation, alternative destinations capitalized on the opportunity. While Florida continued to alienate its most important customers, these global competitors seized the market. They provided what Florida couldn't: stability, warmth, and a welcoming environment for international visitors. Let's talk about Florida's attempt to replace that lost income. The reality? It was a disaster. Florida thought domestic tourists could fill the gap left by Canadian snowbirds, but the numbers don't add up. Canadian snowbirds typically spend $33,000 over 6 months. Domestic tourists? About $1,200 a week. To replace the economic impact of just one Canadian household, Florida would need 28 American families. That volume doesn't exist. Domestic tourism simply can't match the spending power of international snowbirds. Even Florida's second homeowners don't compare. These seasonal residents don't spend as much on local services, don't maintain properties year-round, and don't provide the same steady stream of income. The snowbird model, which kept Florida's economy humming during the off-season, has been shattered. The financial model Florida relied on is now broken. What's left is a permanent loss of revenue streams that can't be replaced by short-term domestic tourism. Florida's tourism economy, once booming thanks to loyal snowbirds, is now struggling to recover. Meanwhile, global competitors are thriving, and Florida is left scrambling to pick up the pieces. Florida's political leaders have done something almost unbelievable. They refused to take responsibility for the disaster they caused. Despite clear evidence that their divisive rhetoric and policies pushed away Canadian snowbirds, Florida's politicians continue to deny the damage. They ignore the facts and pretend their actions didn't lead to a massive $6.6 billion loss. Meanwhile, panic is setting in behind closed doors. Internal documents show that industry leaders and government insiders are worried about the fallout. But publicly, politicians keep defending their failed policies. It's as if they're stuck in denial, choosing short-term political victories over long-term economic survival. What's even worse, the ripple effect of Florida's political blunder is being felt globally. Other U.S. states are now looking at Florida's collapse as a warning. Political risk, driven by ideological stubbornness, can destroy entire economies. Florida's narrative of political victory has crumbled, and the rest of the world is watching. The lesson is clear: never let politics outweigh business sense. Florida's massive tourism infrastructure, hotels, rental properties, airports, car rental agencies, is now a liability. These facilities, which once thrived on snowbirds, are now empty. The cost of maintaining them while Florida's tax revenue plummets is adding insult to injury. Economic recovery isn't just about changing a few policies and hoping for the best. Florida faces a much bigger challenge: how to revive an economy that's been shattered by political decisions. Rebuilding the tourism sector will take years of hard work, smart leadership, and a complete reset of Florida's approach to global tourism. Florida's downfall is now a global lesson. Political decisions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences are irreversible. Florida's lost opportunity should serve as a warning to the world. Put politics over prosperity, and you risk destroying decades of economic growth.